3 members on Zoom.
All right, 5 o'clock.
Good evening. My name is Erica Rail. I'm calling this meeting of the Homelessness Task Force to order.
And I'm Chris Russo-Frazier, and I am calling the Pasture Stewardship Committee's meeting to order.
This is Michael Hellion. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. We're not going to convene the Planning Commission tonight for this meeting. The Planning Commission is, more future focused, and so while we could we can give input on a policy when it's presented to us. Right now, we're going to be in listening mode. So thanks very much.
So thank you. My name is Nicholas Strelli-Castro, City Manager. I asked these committees to call this emergency meeting, and I'm glad they're here today, so that we can continue our conversations about our response to the end of the state's motel program. We've been working really hard on this at the staff level since April, trying to come up with solutions. And we've been discussing this in the last few weeks at the council level. And the purpose of today's meeting is because we had a council meeting last Tuesday where we just had needed some more clarity about the city's policy on camping. So what I'm going to do is the chairs have indulged me to provide a presentation just to lay the table for the committees and for the members of the public here today. And I'm trying to share here on the screen, but I don't see it. Usually, give me 1 second. Usually Councilor Wazazak is doing this, so I don't have to. Where's Ryan? Yeah, do you know how to share from here? I got it on the laptop, I just got to get it up on the screen. Oh, there we go.
So you have to enable.
Hey, can you help me share the PowerPoint on the screens? Thanks. Ryan's coming. He'll be here in a second. So I'll start, and then you'll catch up on some of it on the screen. So what are the numbers? Here's Ryan right now. I'm sure he'll fix it here momentarily. The numbers change by the day, but initially, and what our planning has been based on is on around 387 individuals in Washington County who are currently housed were housed in the motels. And that's 302 adults and 85 children. So there were going to be initially 2 waves of people exiting the motels. The first wave, June 1st, and so that already happened, mostly impacted individuals under the General Assistance Program. The second wave is July 1st, and that really impacts people who are housed for, I don't know what to say, just special conditions is not the right word, but it's people who have medical conditions, families with children. So those families are scheduled to exit July 1st. Now the ramp down has been tiered somewhat. Some of the motels gave people an extra 2 weeks. People who are due to leave July 1 may apply for some extra time in the motel. So this will be staggered over time, but that's essentially, thank you, Ryan, that's essentially the universe that we're looking at, about 387 people who had been housed in Washington County. At one point or another in the next couple of weeks will lose their place in a motel. So what have we offered? We have considered, the council has considered, opening a temporary emergency shelter at the BOR under the right conditions. And that's if the state fully staffs it, fully secures it, and fully mitigates the impacts to the Civic Center complex. So that is what Berry City has said to the state. We can be part of the solution. And the way we can be part of the solution is we have this space that can be used on a very short-term basis as a congregate shelter. So we did submit a letter of interest to the state to that effect, and that was to use the BOR as an emergency shelter only through September 1st, only if they staff and secure it. and only if they cover all of the city's ancillary costs, so things like insurance, things like legal, things like increased calls to the police department and fire and EMS. We also requested funding from the state for rental of portable toilets and showers, because whether people are housed at the BOR or not, they are going to be losing housing, and so people will need places to go to the bathroom and shower. And so we think it's beneficial to the city to have places where people can do that. And we also requested funding for the purchase of ice machines. This is to help people who have been using the motel refrigerators to store their food, and they now will be possibly camping, and they will need ice for coolers and things like that. So what is the reason we're here today is to talk further about a camping policy, and we've asked the Homelessness Task Force and the Cow Pasture Committee to be part of that conversation. And I just want to go over what the camping policy is in Barrie currently. So currently, there is really, by default, no camping in Barrie, and that is because of the reasons listed on this slide. One is that overnight camping is not permitted in public parks or playgrounds, and that's because of ordinance. Ordinance says that those places must be unoccupied after dusk. So essentially, no camping. The cow pasture, there's no camping allowed currently in the cow pasture under its management plan, which was adopted by the City Council. And Canales Woods has no camping, and that has a deed restriction from when it was given to the city, which has some protection and conservation conditions along with it. So those are the main areas when people think about potential camping in Barrie City. They're covered by either ordinance, by the cow pasture management plan, or by a deed. And that's why there's no camping in those locations. So what happens in other areas of the city where encampments are may happen? So when that is the case, and we've talked about this at the council meeting, people are camping in Barrie. That is a fact. And when encampments are brought to our police department's attention, our public safety professionals, they evaluate the site and they compassionately lead people to services. So what they do that by looking at a series of factors, including public health factors. Are there incidents of disease or biohazards at the site? Are there issues of public safety? Is there proximity perhaps to a school? And then environmental factors. Is this in a protected natural area? Is it obstructing a regular use of a public land? And so then, based on that evaluation, our public safety personnel undertake a series of interventions. Again, they're sort of escalating. Usually, what they try to do is to do these interventions during regular business hours, so the people that we are contacting have access to providers who can help connect them to services. We do ask encampments to voluntarily relocate. In fact, that has happened at Canales Woods in the last week. We engage outreach specialists. And then if those things fail, and as a last resort, we proceed to trespassing. And this is already ordinance. This is not a new thing. This is the same ordinance that prevents, that closes the parks and playgrounds at dusk is called trespassing in city parks and playgrounds. That's just the nature of it. So that's the current policy in Barrie. There's also some zoning there we go. Some zoning restrictions on camping, and it's really related to campgrounds that also govern some of what we're thinking about as part of the solution. There is provisions that say that any parcel that can accommodate more than 3 camping units is considered a campground, and it is subject to multiple conditions as laid out that's zoning regulations, Janet? Yeah. Another section that allows, it permits for 1 camping unit as the principal use of an undeveloped lot, also subject to several conditions listed there on this. I know it's too small to read, but there's there's actually a lot to do with camping in our zoning. And then at the bottom there, it lists some conditions that campgrounds must meet. They have to, for example, have 5 acres minimum size. They cannot house campers for more than 30 continuous days. And there's a series of other conditions that have to be met. And then perhaps more importantly, a provision in our Unified Development Ordinance says that short-term accommodations, including tents, are not permitted in the civic district. And that happens to be where all of our city properties are located. Okay, so that was just laying the groundwork. When we say, and when we have been saying at council meetings that there's no camping in Barrie, those are the provisions of law, ordinance, management plans, deeds that we're talking about. It's a patchwork of things that are tied to the properties where people associate with camping that lead us to this broad no camping policy. So why are we here tonight? I asked for these two committees for the task force and this committee to have this meeting tonight so that we could get some feedback from them and of course from the members of the public here tonight. So it's really a pretty simple, I guess, a direct question, but really what the feedback we are looking to hear from people tonight is there city and or state property that the city council should consider for designation for overnight encampments? And the things that I will just share at the staff level, we have been talking about this since April, and we do not believe that there are any adequate areas to designate for overnight encampments. We based on the properties that we shared with you, we are limited by what we can do without changes in ordinance or management plans or deeds. And other areas of the city, we haven't identified a suitable spot, and believe me, we are trying to do our due diligence to make sure that we are not missing anything. And some of the factors we've looked at when we've considered whether properties or areas of the city could be designated for overnight encampments are proximity to services. So we want people to be close to the service providers that help them and feed them and give them water and shelter during days that's too hot. We need people to be close to toilet facilities. So for example, the cow pasture has come up and there's no toilets up there, right? So what would people do up at the cow pasture? And access to transportation and parking. So many people who are exiting the motels, many have vehicles, and so again, to use the cow pasture an example, or Canales Woods, what have you, if we designate it for parking, that would obviously create some impacts on the people who live in those areas, not just from the encampments there, but from parking. So, as I said, we've worked at the staff level to see if there are areas, because we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence. We have not identified any areas that make sense for designation of overnight encampments, but we're calling this meeting to make sure that that is accurate and reflects and that our thinking is not the only thinking going on this. So that's really the prime question we're looking for feedback is there city or state property that the council should designate? It is very okay to just simply answer no, right? We don't need people to come up here and tell us the 500 reasons why they don't think so. It's okay to just simply say, no, I don't think so. That's a perfectly acceptable response. We're gonna try to wrap this meeting at 6:30 because we actually have a competing meeting at Alumni Hall. So we will be enforcing some time limits when we get to public discussion, and we'll be giving speaking priority to Barrie City residents. The other question I wanted to make sure we are addressing is, we've talked about this with the Homelessness Task Force, are there locations where the city of Barrie could install those portable toilets and showers? My personal opinion is if we use the BOR as a congregate shelter, I think certainly the showers should be there. I'm not sure there are, I don't want to put my finger on the scale, I'm just not sure there's places where showers can be safely anywhere else, but there certainly are places where portable toilets could be made available, and probably many of us who've been downtown at one point or another probably wish there had been one somewhere. So those are the two really big questions that would be helpful to get input from both committees and members of the public here today. What we are not looking for feedback tonight. We don't need to debate the national or state homelessness policy generally. I think we all probably have pretty heated opinions about it. It's not going to give us the input that we want to give to council tomorrow night. So if you want to talk about that, post it on your Facebook page. We're not talking about the merits or lack thereof of the motel program and the legislature and governor's decision to end the program. Again, if you have opinions about that, you're welcome to stay, post them on your Facebook page. And really, it's not helpful to talk about speculation of why people are homeless. There's a lot of reasons people might be homeless. I think one of the things that frustrates me greatly is when we legislate or make policy based on the lowest common denominator, so to speak, right? Are there people who have abused the system? Probably. Are there people who desperately need housing, who are losing it and desperately need it? Absolutely. So try to keep those people in mind when you give your comments tonight. So I think that does it about it. Like I said, the meeting will wrap at 6 p.m. We'll enforce time limits. This looks like a pretty local crowd, so I probably don't need to show you all these pictures, but these are, in case you're unfamiliar with them, the excuse me, the aerial photographs of many of the properties we've talked about that are subject to the rules and regulations that I read. Rotary Park, City Hall, Courier Parks, Dente. I probably don't need to read them. You probably all know what I'm talking about. Canals Woods may be less familiar. Is down there. It's probably hard to see anyway. And then we also have some pictures here of undeveloped land for the city. I mean, these are all things that the city staff has considered, and again, we haven't found a suitable location. So our recommendation tomorrow night for the council would be to sort of continue our status quo, but we're here to get input on that. And I'm having a little bit of lag here. This is all just a map of city-owned land, period. You can see the big stretches there of the cow pasture at the top. We're also not here to talk about private property. I should have added that's a whole other topic of discussion. So I think there's a little bit of lag here on the PowerPoint, but state-owned land might be more interesting to people. There's actually not a ton of it, and this is state-owned undeveloped land. Most of it is around the railroads on North and South Main Street. They also own a little bit of land near Dente Park. Not really suitable for camping. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to the chairs of the task force and committees, and I think welcome your feedback and feedback from your members, and then maybe we can start lining people up
The
at
committee?
the table.
Wow.
Do you care who?
Oh, go ahead.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming, and we welcome everybody's feedback. Again, I'll introduce myself. My name is Erica Rail. I'm the chair of the Homelessness Task Force. I also work my 9 to 5, if you want to call it that. I work with folks that are chronically homeless. This is a wonderful opportunity to get you all feedback. It's a time that's most critical, and I know you're all here because you're concerned. The folks that are coming out of the hotels in this crisis are folks that have been homeless for 3 years, and some folks that are newly homeless.
You wait all fucking day, and now I'm no.
People can mute themselves, and I also think we've been bombed by Glenn.
I know you've been at court, you've been in court.
But I'm going to ignore him. So what we're seeing are folks have been camping in Barrie for a very long time, and folks are probably going to continue camping. And I realize that camping is probably not the term that most folks want to use when it comes to this, but that's the term that folks that are homeless use. So I'm going to use it. So we are looking for a place where folks that are homeless can safely camp, sometimes just for the night. Folks that are homeless also work during the day, are going to services during the day. So sometimes they pick up and move on during the day. So we are looking just for a place where they can bed down during the night safely, sometimes with their families, sometimes with friends. They decide to stay in the Central Vermont because that's where their supports and services and families are. This is not a lifestyle that people choose. This is a lifestyle that people have no choice, and it's a victim of circumstance. I know Barrie is a very caring place. I come from Montpelier originally, and Barrie is my hometown, and I know that we're going to make a place where all community members, no matter what, can be here. Thank you.
You want to tell me?
So,
Call 1-800-390-3434 for your free information.
so should I go on?
Yeah.
My name is Chris Russo Frazier, and I'm chair of the Cow Pasture Committee. this meeting, I wasn't expecting to be sitting up here this evening. Is this better? I wasn't expecting to be sitting up here this evening. And also, I should add that as a committee, we respected Robert's rules and didn't discuss this. This meeting came up rather quickly. So we were unable to call an emergency meeting and get an opinion of all the committee members and a response from all committee members. I'm kind of feel like I'm sitting up here alone without being able to express any kind of opinion of the whole committee. So,
You can share yours, though, if you.
okay. So being the chair of the Cow Pasture Committee, and even prior to there being a Cow Pasture Committee, I'm a neighbor, and my children and we always used the property growing up. And when we first moved to the city many years ago, it really wasn't a very welcoming place. There was a lot of encampments there, and I heard this from a number of residents also who have lived here much longer in the city than we have. I think it was 1987 we moved here. I became fond of the property and started advocating for it, and applied for some Semper Bond monies, which we got, which allowed us, even one of the recommendations, we created a management plan for it, had monies because of the Semper Bond Fund to create a management plan, first an assessment and then a management plan. So the management plan was really well thought out. The assessment actually was first, and they recommended a committee that the city create a Cow Pasture Stewardship Committee. So there was formation of the Cow Pasture Stewardship Committee, and from there, with the help of the Semper Bond Fund, we created a management plan for the space. The management plan was well thought out. It took a good year for the person to create it, and a lot of most specifically, one of the recommendations, they had allowed uses and prohibited uses, considering the size of the parcel and, conflicts of interest. And so some of the prohibited uses included, ATV, dirt bikes, equestrian use, camping, fires, hunting and trapping, and trail management activities without permission. So, and basically, these were there just for public safety and just, avoiding conflict of use on the property. So throughout the years, the committee has, on Green Up Day, cleaned up abandoned encampments on the site, and they were numerous to begin with, and I think that this is why people did not feel safe on the property. There was one year that we actually had the Snow Bees ATV, and we hauled loads and loads of abandoned encampments out of the property, tents, tarps, clothing, cooking gear, and that has gotten much less in recent years. I think this year on Green Up Day is the first year that we have not emptied out an encampment on the property. And they've been sad, it's one year there was an encampment and not a very hospitable site, and there was bags of diapers, little kids' blankets, toys. It was sad. So we've never physically had to remove an encampment. Our policy is that we would post a notice on a tent and ask people to remove their belongings within a week period, and if they weren't removed, then we would call in the police to have those encampments removed. So, I'm speaking, I believe, for the whole committee, but I'm probably just speaking for myself. I really don't see the property. I came up with a lot of criteria for people, and I don't want to say camping because it's really living. That's where they're living. They're not, camping is something like more of a recreational use. And I came up with a whole list of criteria that I think would be important for somebody living on their own, and honestly, the cow pasture doesn't meet any of those criteria.
I see Miriam is on the task force. Maybe we should let her?
Yes, please. Miriam's on the homeless task force.
Miriam, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, hi, my question was just, is the cow pasture usable or not? And I hear that the final answer is no, you're not gonna let people stay there. Is that correct?
Which, the cow,
The cow pasture?
was it the question? It's the city's
Yeah.
policy,
So,
so.
yeah, Miriam, so the city's, the management plan for the cow pasture prohibits camping in the cow pasture, so the current policy is no camping. So that's, that's one of the questions.
Yeah, got it.
here
Thanks.
to-
So again, does anyone have any ideas where people can live outdoors?
That's what we're here to talk about. I think that, as I mentioned, we haven't identified a suitable place that doesn't have either a legal barrier to camping. Frankly, none of the sites we've looked at or the sort of go-to places that one would think of are close to services.
Okay, so
also
basically what I'm
transportation.
hearing is that there are literally no spaces in Barry where people are going to be allowed to exist outdoors. And that if they attempt to exist outdoors, they will be in violation of the law. Is that correct?
They are, as it's currently written, if someone is camping at the cow pasture, they would be in violation of the management plan of the cow pasture. If someone's camping in a park or playground, they would be in violation of city ordinance. If someone's camping in Canales Woods, they would be in violation of the deed of Canales Woods when it was handed to the city. What is happening, and what we are not blind to, is that, and Erica's very good about reminding me about this, is that people are camping in Barry, and they're doing so in certain locations. And what happens is, if they are brought to the city's attention, our police department addresses it based on a number of factors that I shared, right? Environmental, public health, and public safety factors. What is probably happening in many locations is the camping is happening discreetly. It's not disturbing anyone's way of life. It's not disturbing anyone's daily routine. And so it's not coming to our attention. And our police are not addressing it. We're not going out actively looking for them. So if they're camping somewhere in Barry City and they haven't been reported to us, the chances are it's happening without it disturbing anyone's day-to-day life, right? And that's a really difficult line to walk with a policy, but I dare say it kind of works. And I think that's why we're here today, to see if there should be designation of any specific places, but as I laid out, there's challenges to that, right? The parks and playgrounds, it's restricted. The cow pasture, it's restricted. Canales Woods, it's restricted. I showed maps of all the other vacant lots that the city owns. None of those are really suitable for long-term camping. So what may be the outcome of tonight's meeting, might be a long way to get there, is that the status quo that the city has been using as a practice might actually turn out to be the best path forward. And we'll know that if, we may know that at the end of the night, but that's the point of the meeting, is are there suitable places? We haven't identified any, and we're here to listen to people's feedback on it. So I know Phil is on the homelessness task force.
And Chip is also on the homeless.
And Chip also wants to speak. So who wants to go first, Phil or Chip? And there's cow pasture people in the room?
Chip, you can go first.
Okay, thanks, Phil. It's kind of like, what part of no don't you understand? My first choices would have been City Hall Park or Courier Park, because it's important that these folks be near the services, and especially the churches in the area. So if the cow pasture is out, I wouldn't have voted for that anyway, because it's too far out from where people need to be. What about the BOR parking lot?
I think, it's a fair question, Chip. Sorry, Eric or Chris, I'm doing a lot of talking,
No, it's
but
fine. No,
please, take my mic away if you want to.
It's fine if you want to field it, but also I think that you know, my first choice is not the cow pasture for exactly those reasons. It's too far away from resources. But, you know, when the cow pasture was brought up, it was like, it's a place where people can camp safely. The BOR parking lot is, you know, any parking lot. I would even pick the Walmart parking lot at this point if people could camp safely. That's all I'm looking for, is a place where people can camp safely and it's secure. Where people can go to resources. So I think that's a valid place, is the BOR parking lot. You know, I'm just here for people to be safe.
Yeah, I think, Chip, you know, what I would say to that is, we're actively working with the state. We met with the state today about the BOR. You know, my personal opinion is that if we're gonna be doing anything up at the BOR, we should be doing it indoors. You know, we're talking a literal roof over people's head. So, there's already, so that's just my opinion, but I hear you.
And can I speak? Chip, I came around to the BOR parking lot as well, because I kind of came up with a list of criteria that I think for people living need to have. One of them, you know, several of them are associated with water. You know, you need potable water. If they're in the cow pasture, I'm afraid that people will be drinking out of the stream, which is totally unsafe. They need sanitary facilities, you know, either a porta potty or flush toilets. They need a bathing facility, especially if they're camping. You know, ticks are horrible now, and every time I'm in the cow pasture off the path, I am anxious to get home and take a shower to remove ticks that I inevitably pick up. Another criteria is safety. Can the site be monitored and patrolled? The cow pasture cannot be monitored and patrolled. Usually campsites are hidden from the main view. So, cleaned up, can the space be cleaned up? You know, the cow pasture is a volunteer committee, and we've been working hard to get that site cleaned and in the condition that it is now over the years. You know, there's ticks there, crime, you know, tents are not secure. Drug use, monitoring and containing within a designated area. You know, if we said the cow pasture and designated an area, who's going to patrol and monitor to make sure that, you know, that's there? Shelter from the elements. I'm a camper, and I know camping in a tent in foul weather, you do not stay dry. You don't, you know, you have to have a place to, you know, cook, and, you know, you're out in the elements. You know, picnic tables, cooking, access to services, electricity, lighting for safety. So, you know, I came up with all these criteria that I think people would need to live out in the element, and then came up with some potential sites. And you know, my thought was, it's like, which of these sites, you know, would provide most these needs? And the BOR was actually parking lot on the I guess as you go up the hill, there's a small grass area that would be shaded from the western sun, you know. I don't know if there's money available to enhance a site, you know, with like a shelter with a picnic table for cooking, or just being out of the weather when you're not in your two-person tent.
I don't mean to disagree with you, but I'm sorry, I have to, because when you're homeless, you do without. You do without a lot of those things, and you just go forward. So if we're looking for somebody who's, you know, I agree, these folks need the creature comforts, but when you're homeless, you do without, and you learn how to do without. So I'm just gonna move forward.
Yeah, give us 1 second. I think we're giving the members of the committees a chance. Are there any members of the cow pasture who haven't? Tim, do you want to speak?
Hi, Tim Repchinsky, I'm a member of the cow.
Tim, do you mind coming up to the mic for the people on the Zoom?
Hi, Tim Repchinsky. I'm a member of the cow pasture committee. I'm going to keep this short to respect everybody's time. I just want to echo Chris's concerns. And one aspect that has not been brought up when it comes to safety is trees. a lot of the former encampments that we have cleaned up are in an old growth pine forest, and there are lots of branches that fall down when just the slightest gust of wind picks up. So I'm sorry I don't have a further solution as to where people can camp, but I want that to be considered too, because it would be really unfortunate if somebody also sustained an injury due to where they were staying. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. And I see Jeanette. We will get to public comment. This is a committee meeting, so we're giving the members of the committee the opportunity to comment. Jeanette is from the Cow Pasture Committee.
Yeah, Nicholas, thank you. You had mentioned parking as a factor up in the cow pasture, and this isn't really about the cow pasture, but I'd like us to consider that cars are often the only safe place where folks can store their things. So quick and easy access to the car when we're thinking about places where you can camp would probably be something that we should take in consideration as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeanette. Phil and Miriam has spoken. Should we go to?
Oh, I haven't spoken.
Oh, Phil hasn't spoken. So one more member of the task force.
Okay. So is that me?
Yep, Phil.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Philip Morris, I'm on the homelessness task force. I have a few questions and then maybe something to say. Are we talking about just a single site? That was what I was a little confused about.
No, not necessarily.
Okay. Okay, that one down. And since about, I think 30 people have come out of the motels on June 1st, has there been an uptick in sheltering outside or camping in Berry City?
Police identified they were brought to their attention a campsite in Canals Woods, which the people there voluntarily left.
Mhm.
Again, that's because there's a deed restriction on that property.
Sure.
So other than I'm looking at Chief Vale, I don't think there's not that we're aware of. And I think, I hate to say it, but this live and let live policy where, we're not actively looking for them. If people are camping in the city, it means they're not disrupting people's day to day, because we do know that there are people camping here, right? And Miriam, I see your question in the chat, Miriam. Yes, there are people camping. They're not designated spots, but they're doing so in a way that is not impacting anyone's day to day because they're not showing up on Chief Vale's doorstep.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then I know Chip said that Courier Park is out of the picture. Why is that?
So ordinance says that parks are closed after dusk. So
Okay.
it's a sort of a by default designation.
Got it. I'm sorry. Yeah, I understood that.
Yep.
So, ordinances can be changed, yes?
Absolutely. They absolutely
Okay.
can.
That
Yep.
was another question. Yeah, and I agree with Chip. I think that the the location should be in the downtowns because that's where the services are. That's where public transportation is. That's going to be the easiest place to get food. So if we're talking about multiple sites, where do the cemeteries fall in all of this? Because I know there is a section at Elmwood
they-
that is
believe they
open.
have the same restriction as the parks. I don't have the citation, but yeah, it's treated the same way.
All right, because that was one thought I had. I'm not sure which direction it is, but it's where the community garden is at Elmwood.
Right.
Vacant land there, and I know there's vacant land at Hope Cemetery,
Mhm.
kind of going out of the city.
Yeah.
And as far as
Sorry, not to interrupt. Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry, let me finish. This will be the last thing. As far as parking lots, has anyone approached the churches about using their parking lots? I know Heading has a pretty sizable parking lot that then flows into what's behind Enough Ministries. I'm not quite sure who has rights to the spaces behind Enough Ministries.
I haven't approached
Just
them.
a few places that came to mind that were in the downtown area.
Yeah, Phil, I haven't approached the churches. I'm sure Pastor, maybe it's a question I'm happy to post to Pastor Lee. I think even Pastor Dan, and I think the other comment just on the hope and is the I think one of the other issues goes back to proximity.
Still getting on.
the services. But thanks, Phil.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
So do you want to go to some comments from the room? So if folks want to.
Susan wanted to say something.
Oh, Susan, where's Susan? Right here. Oh, Susan. Sorry, come on in. From Cow Pasture. Yes.
Susan McDowell on
Yeah,
the.
recently.
Recently.
Welcome.
Yes. I would like to thank you for putting out the criteria of what you are looking for and what makes living, better or easier, doable. Independently of this meeting, I had also thought of the parking lot up at the BOR and drove up there the other day. And also wondered about it. So I'd echo that as maybe an idea. And if not, allowing camping there that might be a place where you can set up portable toilets and showers and picnic tables maybe. Yeah.
Thanks, Susan. City Manager Emeritus.
For those who may not know, I'm Steve McKenzie. I came, a 42-year resident of Maplewood Avenue, and the long staff support for the Cow Pasture Committee. Was here to make remarks specifically about the cow pasture, but frankly, your presentation covered pretty much everything I was going to say as to reasons why encampments wouldn't be a positive thing. I think encampments in locations where there's going to be public interaction, I think, pose serious risks of many kinds. I think I'm here to speak for myself, but I think I share the sentiments of a lot of people in the room, many of them who are my neighbors. You had one side there that said it's okay to simply say no.
Yeah.
I'm saying simply no. But the constructive suggestion I have is for you as manager and or the council to rethink the BOR proposal to the state. I'll be the first to admit I don't know many of the details that went into the $29,000 quote, but I would suggest that you rethink that and make it much more financially viable, if not attractive to the state. Just rent out the BOR at the daily rate, $1,550 a day, and with all the other conditions that you have, the security provided by the state, cleaning by the state, and so on and so forth. That amounts to about $150,000 over 3 months, which is much more feasible than $29,000 a day. So I try to make that suggestion in a constructive fashion.
Yeah, no, thanks, Stephen. And starting my negotiations high. But we're negotiating with the state. We've met with them today, and they know we're gonna if there's a way we can find a way to use a BOR, that we'll get there. Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
My property borders
You can have a seat there.
cow pasture,
Like.
and I'm legally blind, so I walk all the time in this city. So I don't feel safe if there's a bunch of people camping in City Park. Kids walk home from school. Courier Park, there's a funeral home there, for God's sake. People there mourning their family members have to go out and see that? That is despicable. And then somebody has nerve to bring up the cemeteries? Is nothing sacred anymore? There's got to be other areas of the state, or perhaps maybe they've had 2 years to do something, and I personally know 2 people who chose to live in hotels for the free food, free place to live. It's just ridiculous. I know what it's like to struggle. After my divorce, I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment here in Barrie with my daughter. You know what? Then I moved to a 2-bedroom apartment, and then I moved up to Hilltop townhouses. I was on subsidized housing. My rent was $128 a month, which was 30% of my income. My daughter lived off 4 for $1 macaroni and cheese and SpaghettiOs. And you know what? I saved up $1,000 and I bought a repo house up in Graniteville where I'm legally blind. I don't drive. Was not the easiest thing to do. But I turned around and I sold that and I bought this house in Barrie City. So if I can do it anybody can. Plus, I had a stalker for 5 years. I have the first lifetime restraining order. I spent 90% of the time in court trying to fight for my daughters and my safety. And to say that they're not causing trouble, I have a scanner. You hear on the scanner all the time.
All right,
cops
look, we're not
going
here to
through the
discuss
jungle.
homelessness policy. We're not here to talk about the motivations and reasons why people are homeless.
No, but I'm
You-
here to talk about the sacredness of a cemetery, people being able to mourn their family members at a funeral home.
We can do that without
and not
disparaging.
enabling people to continue to live that way and put their children through it.
Okay,
The two
thank
people
you.
I know have
Who's next?
Little children. You guys are making it easy. It's not right.
Yes, please. Yeah, please say your name and where you're from.
I just have a quick question.
Your name and where you're from.
Denise Chuchalo, and I'm from 7 onward, by the cow, I live by the cow pasture.
Yeah.
I guess it's not clear to me if these are temporary solutions, because we live in Vermont, and as we know, the winter is pretty
Yeah.
brutal, so folks would be in tents past.
No,
just
it would
don't
be,
know what the
and
solution
Erica knows this a lot better than I do, but I believe the general assistance program winds back up in November.
It winds back up in November for extreme situations, for extreme weather. But as we know, the transient, the homeless are our transient population. So people come in, they come out, they flow in, flow out. And also we have a housing crisis. So we don't know when the house is going to back up again. So I see people come in that are homeless, all year round, but I also see a flex in people. So yeah, we have so many unknowns with this. I can't give you, yes, people are going to stay there for a couple days. Some people might stay there whenever, for as long as however. So I can't give you a yes or no. I'm sorry.
And is it just in Barry, or there, because the numbers
Yeah.
seem to.
It'll be the
Yeah.
region. It'll be the region. So we're working really closely with Montpelier and Berlin. And I don't think Montpelier has any quote-unquote designated areas. I know there's areas in Montpelier that providers direct people to go that are secure, but they don't have like a designated space either. These would obviously be temporary solutions, as the BOR would be as well, if we were to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we have to vote. I agree with what Karen said as far as the cow pasture. I don't find
Yeah.
it an appropriate venue.
Yeah,
but-
I don't think anyone does.
No, I mean, I don't think we find any place appropriate. I mean, if I had my magic wand, everybody would have housing, but I don't
Yeah.
have that. None of us do.
Yeah. Thank you. Gentleman in the back. And then, Miss, you can be next. Yep. Name and where you're from, please?
I'm Mark Martin, and I'm from Barry.
Oh, I know Mark Martin.
This is just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I don't, suggestion for possible camping site. Is the Barry Dog Park owned by the city? And would that be, it doesn't fit
yeah, it
all
is.
the criteria.
Yeah.
But that was just an
Yeah,
idea, so I thought I'd throw it out there.
I believe, yeah, it is. I'm looking at Janet, she's nodding, yes. And I believe there's some camping that happens in that area, again, without a designation. And so one of the, one of the challenges of this is, do we designate a formal area, or do we continue the status quo where people camp sort of off the beaten path and it,
I understand you're looking
yeah.
at a dedicated location.
Yeah.
With access to facilities.
Yeah.
and services and resources.
Right. No, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Miss?
I'm Jan Fortier. I live on Prospect Street in Barry, and I have a question for Erica. Erica, these people need help. They are getting asked to leave the motels, but in my head, I'm thinking, if they're leaving the motels, then why can't the agencies get them right there and locate places or situations that would better suit the needs of each individual, so that then there wouldn't be the need to put these people into areas that are going to create the situations that we see here? because everybody does have a right to be in fear of some of these people, not all. And everybody does need a home, but not all of those homeless people want a home. And that is the agencies that should be able to discern what is right for each individual. And thus, the city should not have to be involved, and we should not have to endanger our children and endanger people who have paid taxes all their lives, because this is what I'm hearing. These people came out because they're worried. They're worried that you're not making the right decisions, and you're worried because you're trying to help other people that need help. But to me, the solution is pretty simple. They're coming out somewhere. And the way that it is set up right now with if they're camping and they're making an issue where they are and the police have to go, if I heard it correctly, you direct them to the agencies that can help them. Am I correct? Then leave it that way, because no one minds it that way. And you can help the people who need help. That's all I have to say. So I say no to this evening.
So to answer your question, for 3 years, I've actually been in the hotels directing people to services and trying to find housing and trying to find services. And so I was in Capstone and Social Security and doctors, et cetera, but the help isn't there. We've run out of time.
But Erica, truthfully, everybody wants to help everyone, but everyone in this room knows we cannot financially or physically help every single person. So in the weeding out process, you, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I feel that you should be going to those places, going and saying, okay, this person has children. They're trying to find a job. They just lost their apartment. They have the most priority. Maybe there's 3 or 4 that like camping out, and they're totally giving you a hard time to go into an establishment. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But I just think
We could have this we could have this conversation
So
offline.
why don't, we have Colleen on Zoom who has her hand raised, so why don't we go to Zoom? Colleen?
Hi, I'm Colleen. I live in Berry City. I totally understand that comment. I also just wanted to add that the community of homeless individuals in our area are veterans. They have paid taxes all their lives. They're elders. They have complex medical needs. They're individuals that are working. So I don't think it's that simple of just providing a kind of quick fix and comprehensive services to someone. Part of the issue is that there's no housing. There's no affordable housing for individuals that are living on a fixed income. If you've been kind of following the storyline around this, particularly from Another Way in the Good Samaritan, you'll know that a high number of individuals that are homeless in our community are over the age of 65 and have some kind of disability, and also a lot of veterans. So I just kind of want to share that as part of the assumption around this narrative, and that these are individuals that have been working their entire lives, and something has either prevented them from continuing to work, or they've reached that age where they've retired and no longer can afford any housing. And our social service system in the state of Vermont is just not set up to support this influx of individuals. So I really hope that Barry can stretch and lean a little bit and get a little bit out of its comfort zone, and work to try and support these individuals into the next place as we work on long-term solutions in the state of Vermont. That's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Colleen. We have Miriam from the task force. I'll go to her quickly, and then I thought I saw a hand up. No? Just an illusion? Miriam, do you have something to share?
I had several questions. First of all, is the BOR still on the table? That
Yes.
seems to be the case in this meeting, right? So wasn't another part of this meeting to discuss where we're gonna put the porta potties, because we're gonna put
Yes.
porta potties somewhere?
Please
Also, I
share.
had a question about, like, there's a lot of RVs around in lots. Could some of those be donated or purchased for people to like live in these parking lots? Which I think is a great idea.
It's, oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't know you were
Another
coming with more
question I
questions.
had is there the possibility of the council changing some of their policies for a period of time so that we can continue to look the other way?
So,
So I know that's a lot of questions.
yeah,
but-
Miriam, so it's okay for me. I'm happy to address Miriam's question. So, Miriam, I think that the state has been looking at mobile home parks as an option. They've been, I know, scouring to see where there are places where they could use those as resources. Certainly the city doesn't have access to resources to do something like that, but I know that those are the kinds of things that the state is looking at, and the legislature did put aside some money to help with this response, and hopefully that they'll get letters of interest to that effect. I know that it's certainly on the state's agenda. The ordinance, someone mentioned ordinances can change, management plans can change. I think part of the goal of the meeting was to hear if there are places that should be designated, from my perspective, again, as the city staff, I'm sharing the city staff perspective, we don't know of an adequate place to formally designate. I hate to be repetitive, but it may be the outcome of tonight that the practice that we have been using, which is this, live and let live approach, right? Where people do camp and bury, we know it happens, but we respond and we react when it's brought to our police department's attention.
Right,
And
no, I get that.
That may end up being, the best solution. I'm sure there are service providers who may be sharing with people, hey, this is a place where you can go camp discreetly and bury. Because I know that's what they're doing. They're saying, this is a place you can go camp discreetly in Berlin. This is a place you can go camp discreetly in Montpelier. Does that impact our day-to-day lives? It doesn't impact mine, but I'm one person. But frankly, if my sense is that if it's not ending up at Police Chief Vale's desk, that it probably isn't impacting anybody else, or certainly isn't impacting anybody who's bothered by it. So again, this just may be a long roundabout way to validate the city's current practice, which may end up being the best of a series of really not great options, but it might be the best bad choice we have.
So can we address the porta potties?
Yeah, please. And then, do you want to come to the miss?
No, I have so much to say, but really shouldn't say anything.
Okay. I like that self-control. That's very good. I wish I had it. So Miriam wants to go on to recommend places for porta potties, which would be great. And Jeanette, and look, I heard some grumbles in the room about that. Whether we designate camping or not, whether we put out porta potties or not, people are exiting the motels. So we can either put out porta potties or we can have people defecating on streets. So if you don't want porta potties, what you're telling me is you want people defecating on streets. So I heard some grumbles in the room. I just want to make sure that's clear. So Miriam, do you want to say what you were going to say, and then we'll go to Jeanette?
If Jeanette wants to address the previous issue before we go on to porta potties, I'd rather go to Jeanette.
Okay. Jeanette?
Yeah, just a really quick question, Nicholas. So there is funding that the city or the region, Montpelier, Berry, Berlin, is getting from the state for a temporary solution. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, that's right.
So have we considered any of the existing hotels, and if some of the money can go into the hotels that folks were staying in within the city limits, or some private lots that might also be available? Is that an option at all?
Yeah,
I'm
Jeanette,
wondering, because now these hotels are not being used and they have the space.
Yeah, Jeanette, I believe that's under consideration. That's a little bit above our pay grade here at the city, but I know that that's there are agencies working on that specific proposal, which I think would be great, because I know many of those motels won't be returned into regular service anytime soon, so.
Thank you.
Please, yeah.
My question is just, what are the issues with the BOR? Because it seems like everyone seems to think that's the best option. So I'd just like to hear what
Yeah.
the issues are.
So I think I'm just gonna, again, I'm doing a lot of talking.
That's fine.
I'm good with
Okay.
that.
I'm not used to talking when Councilor Deering's used to talking, but I'm not used to talking up here. So the BOR as a congregate shelter, the inside of the BOR is totally on the table. We are currently negotiating it with the state, and we need to fix and agree to a price and some conditions. Our conditions are that they staff it, they secure it, they mitigate all factors. I think it happens to be a good solution, temporary solution. Now, parking in the BOR parking lot, I hadn't contemplated, and I'm going to sound like a naysayer, which I don't want it to come across that way. I'm just thinking on the spot here, but one of the reasons I prefer to use the BOR as a congregate shelter instead of using the parking lot to camp is because if the BOR is used as a congregate shelter, then the state is staffing it and securing it. If it's if it's camping in the parking lot, then we have to do that, and that's difficult for our resources. I'm looking at the chief, and they would have to do that instead of having the state take care of it. So I'm just thinking on the fly. I happen to believe that the best that Barry can provide to help respond to the solution is the BOR as a congregate shelter. Yeah. Thank you. Was that a hand up? No, just scratching? All right, be careful.
Yeah, I do have to say, sorry, Nicholas.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I do have to say, Nicholas, that no matter what, if the BOR does come in to play, we are still going to have folks that are going to be camping.
Yes, that's true too.
So just a couple of, Michael Deering, I live on Chateau, which is Bergeron Street in Barrie City. A couple of concerns of mine are the strain on the city resources. Number one, between the fire and the EMS, incorporating 387 individuals in Washington County to come to Barrie City, I think that we need to really have a strategy in place to make sure that those resources are deployed adequately. I think that the responses that we could potentially see with some of our emergencies, with people camping in the middle of wherever they can go, can be something that we're not prepared for. A police officer or a firefighter or an EMT might need to take an ATV out into the woods to take somebody to bring them to the hospital. Those are things that we haven't really talked about at all tonight, the safety and the security of these people that we're kind of talking about. And that's kind of a little mind-boggling. I think that we have a lot to talk about in general, but a question that really hasn't been asked at all is, why aren't we using the school? We've used schools in the past, and I don't know why it's not an option on the table. And I'm speaking as a resident because I don't know what the situation is. I know that the school will be ending soon, and I'm under the impression that summer school will be at Barrie Town. So we could potentially house people in the gym at Barrie City School. I don't know. But again, it's a conversation that many people are going to need to be involved with. And I just wanted to bring up, a couple of the notes that I had taken down.
So for one thing, Michael, sorry, Councilor Deering, the 300 plus people are in Washington County in total, not just Barrie City.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about 300 people just coming into Barrie City. That's spread out across Washington County.
But we're talking about bringing all of those 387 individuals to the city.
No.
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 They will come now.
If you build, okay.
No. So.
If you build it, they will come.
No, they're not going to all come.
That is okay.
They're not going to all come.
Okay, fair enough.
Because.
I don't want to argue with you. I just want to have a conversation,
right now,
ma'am.
so right now we have, I'm going to say 30 plus, I'm going to make a ballpark. We have 30 plus people that have been evicted, probably more than that.
Yep.
Have you seen any of them?
No, actually I have.
Yeah.
I interact with a lot of people.
Okay, So that I know, and I know for a fact they've spread out over, so they're not all gonna come. I guarantee you, I bet my life on it.
Okay.
So the school, I think that's a great idea. So one thing that I have learned in my work is that if you have a place where folks can go, that's a great place because you could have emergency services know that's an ultimate place where people are gathered. Probably that's a place where they can go and meet people that are having emergency crises.
So you would also agree and say that in this crisis, that if we identified a place for these individuals to go, potentially 387 people from Washington County could be here.
Well, if we identified a place, possibly those folks that chose to be, they're not gonna all come to Berry City.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just share, thanks, Counselor. I would just share that I've heard from Rick, who actually believes that the BOR would get maybe sparse use because of that. It's, so I don't think I think getting all 387 would be, I think, a shock to everyone in this situation. I think this, the schools counselor, we've been focused on city-owned properties and sites. So I don't know if this district has had any response yet. I suspect they probably have a lot of the similar issues, which is that they have a building, they don't have staff to run it. So they'd probably be in a similar boat that we would be in. But thank you. This gentleman, could you come to the mic? It's for the people on Zoom. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Johnny Bedell. I live at 38 Merchant Street, run the back side of the BOR. There's some concerns for me as living right next to it. One is the dust that's going to be created in that parking lot of all these cars, the trash. One of the things I'm thinking is, if you're looking at 387 people inside the BOR, I got two questions. One, how long is this supposed to last? And the other question is, what happens at the end of that? Is there going to be another place? Is there another plan? Because for me, I'm a hockey player. I want to play hockey.
Play hockey, me too.
Very nice.
Hey.
So, and then the other question is there, you're going to have I'm just picturing, I'm in construction, so I'm picturing you're going to make rooms for these people inside the building on the floor? And is there enough room to have 397 or 300, whatever, 80 rooms for all these people? And, there's kind of some bathrooms in there, and I don't know if there's, some kind of questionable people that if they're sharing, how that's going to work. Also, the auditorium, the basement of the auditorium is pretty big, and there's bathrooms there also.
Did you say your name was Johnny?
Johnny, yeah.
Johnny. So, great question. So I wrote most of them down. If I missed one, let me know. Where'd you play hockey?
At the BOR.
What group?
What
group?
Oh, with the Barry Blades, and when I was in, and with Greg over there.
Is it the Thursday night group?
And your whole family. Weekends, the whole family, the Bedell family, yeah.
I wasn't good enough for the Thursday night group, but I play with other groups. So I play hockey too. So I'm a huge fan of the Spalding high school team. My kids and I went to every game. We went to the girls' championship. So they will have a home this fall. That is a guarantee. Write it down. David Delcourt, put it in your story tomorrow. Spalding will play hockey at the BOR. Certainly, if they want to, it will be there for them. So how long? We've told the state that this is through September 1, and not a day further. We make ice in early October, but we want to give ourselves enough grace period to make sure that the facility is clear, the facility's been cleaned, put together, whatever needs to be done is back. So September 1 is our drop dead, no matter what, if we use the BOR. What happens at the end of this? I think that is, I wish we knew the answer to that. I mean, this is a never-ending series of Band-Aids, and the real solution is housing, which is probably would have been a good use of the money that was spent and some of the ARPA money. Housing is the long-term solution. It's not going to happen on July 1st. It's not going to happen on September 1st. As Erica mentioned, the general assistance program, which is people back in the motels, starts in November. So that's, this is a Band-Aid towards another Band-Aid in the winter. Partition, so we've had very initial conversations with the state. I know that they have some pods and some partitions that their National Guard uses in emergency situations that they would use to try to segregate and separate some of the space in there. But that will come when, assuming we move forward with that space, they know that that's a need. The odd, we looked at the odd. The odd is our designated emergency shelter in our emergency management plan. We actually opened it this winter during Winter Storm Elliott. The reason we shifted to the BOR is because the BOR is a little bit easier facility to isolate. So the odd is a maze of passageways and hallways and staircases, and so the BOR is just that. It's its own thing, right? So we thought it was an easier facility to isolate. We have staff who works at Alumni Hall, and so we just thought that the BOR made more sense, especially now this time of year, than the basement of the odd. Just one thing I want to correct, and I hope I didn't mislead people. There's 387 people in Washington County who are housed in motels. Nobody here is expecting 387 people to show up to the BOR. First of all, 60, 70 of them have already exited, 30 in Barrie, I think. So many of them have made plans to be elsewhere. They've gone out of state, they've gone to other family and friends. So many of them don't like a congregate setting.
Right.
And they just won't go to the BOR. So I don't want to mislead people. There's 387 people in the area. We do not expect, and I'm looking to the staff, nobody expects all of them to show up at the BOR. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
We have some comments from Miriam and Phil, and yeah, please.
Hi all, my name is Mark DeSarno. I just moved in here, your city, and live on Merchant Street. And so, mayhem of moving, the first thing I hear from a neighbor is, they're talking about all this stuff, like, oh no, my wife worked at Travelodge up in South Burlington, managed that hotel, which is the same thing as this kind of hotel down here you're talking about for the last 3 years. And so I understand the people that are in there. There's good, there's bad. There's some bad people. There's a public safety issue, both for some of the people that might be camping, but also for us, the residents, and the tax-paying residents. My opinion on this, I have no useful solution for how to get out of this, other than that what was said before, if you build it, they will come. It really is true, because I can tell you that from what I know from my wife's experience working there, and she got out of it because it literally gave her PTSD managing this place. Kicking people out, when they broke the rules, a lot of drug use, a lot of bad people, a lot of felons, some good people in there that she was able to keep in there, with kids. But the main thing I learned about it that really stuck in my mind was that it's called the 211 program. People call 211 to get into the motel program, is how they got in it. The only requirement was that they be in Vermont. We had people coming on buses, getting off the bus, and as soon as they called, like one guy told her that he called when he was in Massachusetts. And they told him, no, you gotta be in Vermont, come up to Vermont, and then call back. And so he did that. He got in. There's no vetting of this stuff going on. This program acted as flypaper to draw people like that from all over the country, and maybe from even beyond. So it's just something to be aware of. I know we want to get into the details of whether it's good or bad, homelessness and this and that, but it's a thing you need to be aware of. And you also need to be aware of there are probably some felons and bad people in the mix that are dangerous, drug users and felons. I just moved in here. I got a 5-year-old son, and I'm going to do whatever I have to take to protect him. I live right on Merchant Street, right near the epicenter of some of this stuff you're talking about. I don't want to see it. I think that what you're doing now, what you've said, Nicholas, previously, I don't want to see any ordinance changes for the city. Do not go there. That would be, I think you might have a voter revolt. Just don't do that. That's not what we want to see. But just keep in mind that a lot of these people remember what I said about flypaper? A lot of people came in and got into this situation because it was there and they came. Some people desperately needed it, but a lot of people didn't. A lot of people just were doing their thing, like, hey, it's better up in Vermont. Boom, they go up, they call 211, they're in. So if you change the ordinances in the city to allow this kind of thing to grow, they will come. The rest of those 300 odd people will come in here if there's a place to go. If you don't, they won't. You said some of them have already self-deported, basically. You know, so I just want you all to think about that. I really urge you not to change any city ordinance. I know it makes things difficult trying to find a way around this mess. It's a terrible mess. I feel badly for a lot of the people that are the good people that are just in this situation. But at the same time, it is a public safety issue for me and my family. And, you know, I'll do whatever I have to do to protect my family.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much.
I would just note that the city's letter of interest to the state. Just from the city's letter of interest to the state, item 7, limitations on placements. The shelter facility, the BOR, shall not be used to house any violent or sex offender due to the proximity of staff and recreational activities occurring at the Civic Center complex. So.
There's no vetting was done in the 211 program.
Yeah, no, that's part of our conversations. Yeah, it's part of our conversations with the state is how that would happen. But I hear your point, and I look, I think this is a really hard topic to speak of, you know, my sense is that, you know, you're right. There's people who've taken advantage of it, but there's also people who desperately need it, and so we have to find a solution, also keeping in mind the people who desperately need it. Right, that's the part of the tricky part of doing this. So I know Miriam and Phil.
Sarah had her hand up.
Yeah, hi. I'm just gonna say that I did work at the winter overflow shelter, so I could speak to what that looked like. We didn't have rooms, we didn't have partitions. We had like 15 cots in a big room in the Christ Church in Montpelier, and anybody could contact Beth Ann Mayer and find out how that went. We think it was pretty successful. Thank you very much. Also, a lot of the people I work in the homeless community that I work with are 5th generation Vermonters and have been here, you know, for a very long time. And I just want to point that out to people who think they're at the epicenter of, you know, whatever's going on here. And we are aware of who the people we work with are. We have access to their information, and because I work with them closely every day, it's kind of hard to hear the way people who don't know any of them speak about them. I myself have been here quite a number of years. I have raised my child here as a single mother who has been homeless on and off several times simply because it is so freaking hard to make a living as a single parent. And my son was raised to college scholarship. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Miriam. Phil, and then do you want to make your way?
Well, I just wanted to say that.
What, you got to do it at the mic, though.
Are we to me or someone else?
Yeah, why don't we go Phil, and then you can gather your thoughts. Phil?
Okay, and mine is very quick. I'm assuming that there's going to be a limited, if we go with the BOR, there's going to be a limit to the number of people who go there. That's going to be, if 380 people were to show up, you're not just going to keep pushing them in there until.
So it would depend on the partitions. People are not going to like this. It could accommodate 387 people, but no one believes that that's going to happen, for numerous reasons. Yeah.
Okay, and then my second point, I guess, is that maybe we should move on to porta potty soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, let's deal with the low-hanging fruit here and figure out where there could be portable facilities, because everybody agrees they shouldn't be camping, but the reality is that's what they're gonna be doing. So let's at least figure out how to keep these people clean and not defecating on the street.
Yeah. Name and location?
If I say anything more, I'm just gonna go start ranting, so. Samantha has Barry. Town.
Thank you.
I have lots of property here, though.
So are there locations where portable toilets would be
So probably,
acceptable?
yes, probably the first one off the top of the, sorry, I can't speak anymore. Is right downtown, right by the church, on Church Street. That's probably like the best place for one. I mean, even just walking downtown is, being a patron downtown, you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what that's like, yeah.
Yeah,
Finish my comment with a list of suggestions.
please.
You gotta do it at the mic though. Getting some steps.
Yeah.
So the BOR, obviously. City Park. Bike paths. At least porta potties at the bike paths. And clearly people are going to be camping in the cow pasture, whether or not it's sanctioned. Okay, well, they will be. So if you don't like it, then what you would need to do is patrol and call the police, because that's what the current ordinance states. But that's petty. So I think porta potties there make sense just for normal daily recreation, not just for the campers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
I
mean-
think the cow pasture for folks that are even enjoying the cow pasture.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't go hiking there because there's no porta potty, and I've got little kids and whatever. So, but I think showers in the BOR parking
Yeah,
lot makes sense. Downtown somewhere, I don't know if that's
Yeah, the
Trailer
shower,
Park, City Park,
the showers, and my opinion is the showers would only make sense at the BOR.
Yeah, the shower and the porta potty, the BOR, porta potty at the downtown and the cow pasture.
right. And then I think on the bike path, somewhere on the bike path up by the, at the school entrance or something like that. And
Thank you,
then,
Samantha. Oh, sorry, go
like,
ahead. I didn't mean to
don't
cut
know.
you off.
That's it.
Thank you.
There's a hand in the back.
Please. You gotta do it at the mic though.
I just have a quick question. Why porta potties at the cow pasture? Because people have been using that, I assume, for a few years and haven't needed porta potties
How often do you
there?
go to the cow pasture?
How often do I go?
No, I'm asking this lady.
How often do I go? I don't go up there because
Okay.
I don't walk up there by myself.
All right. I go quite frequently, and I've found myself often wanting a portable toilet at the bottom, but this is just a suggestion, but
Okay,
thank you.
fine.
So we're at 6:22. Are there any chairs, Erica and Chair Chris? Do you have any comments that you'd like to make? I can.
No, I think the suggestions for the porta potties and showers are perfectly fine. I know that I'm getting to my age, I know that if there was a porta potty, more sporadically downtown, I'd go downtown a little bit more, and also the cow pasture.
Chris?
Yeah, I have no comments. I know if you build it, people will come, but I think it's a reasonable solution for a difficult situation, speaking for myself and not the committee.
And that's just the camping, the BOR, or the?
The porta potties,
portables.
specifically the
At the cow
reference
pasture?
to the cow pasture. The other the location of it, because there's very limited parking, might be down by the cemetery building, which would, is another less used access to the cow pasture.
And Tim or Susan, do you have any, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to weigh in on that, feel free to. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, recently I did a group activity up there and had to tell people in advance, like, there's no bathroom, so be prepared, whatever that looks like for you. I don't think porta potties near the pasture are a bad idea at all, either way.
And Susan, can I ask, do you, in the pasture or at the entrance?
At the
Like-
entrance,
I
right?
could envision it down by the kiosk, just down by the parking there, just, yeah.
Something to think of. Yeah, it's,
Inside the park.
I-
Oh, no, I was envisioning at the start of the.
yeah, yeah. The kiosk is beyond the rocks, I think. We'd have to look into that. Tim, do you want to weigh in?
Just to expand a little more on that, if we put it at the Maplewood Avenue entrance, I could see one being on the right corner of the road as you're coming in. I know some people tend to park along the side of the road anyway, but that might be a place that's less obstructed and easy for service vehicles.
And look, these are, I should weigh in that, these are temporary, these are rental portable bathrooms. These are not permanent, we're not buying them, so you have stuff to, so please come to the microphone. So I just wanted to clarify that the portable toilets and showers that we requested state funding for are rentals during the duration that the BOR is used. So if that impacts people's thinking, this wouldn't be a this wouldn't be a permanent cow pasture bathroom, so maybe it doesn't make sense there if it's only temporary. I just want to make sure that I let people know that. Please.
Okay. I'm Diana Gray. I live 50
Hi, Diana.
Maplewood Avenue High. Walk in the cow pasture every single
Yeah.
day. And porta potties in cow pasture is not a good idea.
Okay.
Number one, they smell.
Mm-hmm.
And there's trash all over. And, every single day, there's something new up there. I mean, there's a telephone pole at the end of the entrance right there. Well, somebody ripped all the numbers off the telephone, off
Yeah.
the Green Mountain Power has them numbered
Yeah.
and things. So somebody's not going to respect
Yeah.
this porta potty. And over the years, there's been a lot of things go on up at the cow pasture. They have little campfires and, throw the trash and everything. And it's cleaner this year because my husband and I pick it up every day when we see it.
Thanks, Diana.
And, it's nothing for people to be drinking something and just take their
Yeah.
bottle and let
Yeah.
somebody else pick it up, or, buy food in those little trays and throw it off to the side and stuff. But it always gets picked up, so I just don't think porta potties is the
Thank you.
good idea in the cow pasture.
And you may be right. I think I should have been more clear that these are only, they would be temporary, so maybe it's not, it sounds like the portable toilet situation at the,
Well, what about the Berlin Elementary School?
that's up
I
in
mean,
Berlin.
not the Berlin,
Yeah.
Berry City Elementary School.
For-
There's a lot of land there.
For camping or for,
Yeah.
that's, so it's the school district that has to decide that. We're only able to make decisions about city land.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what about with the camping, about all the insurance? Is that going to be okay with these insurance companies if you got people camping in the BOR and stuff?
If the BOR is used as a congregate shelter, we have said that the state would have to pay any insurance premiums that are.
Have to
Yeah,
change
yeah,
how they
yeah.
bill them.
Yeah. And I saw your partner back there. Who is that? Is that Miss?
I'm Judy Burke.
Oh, Judy, we finally meet.
Finally meet you.
Yeah.
Well, I lived up there for 54 years.
Yeah.
And I've seen a variety of things.
Yeah.
From fires to drugs to you name it, it's
Yep.
there. People don't pay that back to themselves.
Yeah.
They race up and down the hill with,
Yeah.
it's probably the same scenario having other places with vehicles and stuff, and it's just not a safe place for some of this. I've seen the fire department have to be up there, not recently.
Yeah.
But in the past, we've had some pretty good sized fires. And, there's kids that are up there all the time.
Yeah.
People walking dogs, doing
Yep.
all that. It just is not a good place.
Yeah. For camping, I think there's a lot of consensus. Yeah. So I think that maybe we can find additional locations downtown. I think there's probably plenty of places downtown where we could spot them. I think the fact that they're temporary probably makes that decision easier. But thank you. It's nice to meet you, Judy. And nice to meet you, Diane. Thank you. Rosemary?
Good evening, Rosemary Averill. I'm speaking as a resident. Eric, I
think you've just been tremendous as the chair of the Homelessness Task Force. Thank you so very much, and your team too. I know, it's really been great. And anyone that knows me in this room knows I'm a pretty compassionate person. However, what I'm going to say may sound a little heartless. I'm sitting here looking at the emblem of the city of Barry. We have the Barry City Homelessness Task Force, the Barry City Cow Pasture Committee, and the Barry Planning Commission that was not called to order, and many residents that are very concerned about this situation. We have a homeless population, which I think we all recognize. I don't think anyone was surprised about it. And I think Barry City's taken very well care of them. Like the city manager said, nobody's breaking down tents or encampments if they're not causing problems. I know that food's delivered to these people, which is great. So all of a sudden, I've thought about this for a few days. Why do we feel the obligation? And in the next breath, I'm saying, other than compassionate care, but why do we as a city feel an obligation to take care of other homeless people when there are already camps open for them to shelter? And it just seems to me that we've done our job by our homeless residents, and I think we should leave it at that. Try to assist placing them in other open areas, but as far as really identifying a specific place, I'm not sure I'm so in favor of that.
Thanks, Rosemary. So as a wrap, I think I'll just try to summarize, and can you please check me if I summarize incorrectly? So we started off talking about just trying to lay out where the basis of the no camping policy comes from. I think my takeaway is that the practice that we have used seems to work, and I'll repeat it, which is that there's no sanctioned camping in Barry City. However, our police department is not actively looking for encampments to break down. Our police department is responding compassionately and humanely to encampments that are brought to its attention. We heard that some people suggested perhaps the dog park as a consideration, perhaps the BOR parking lot as a consideration for camping. My takeaway is that we'd have to evaluate the camping in the BOR a little bit further. My sense was that Barry's contribution to the homelessness crisis that is being foisted upon us is to really work to try to make the BOR happen as a congregate shelter on a short-term basis. My sense, again, and I'm looking to Erica a lot about this because of her expertise, is that providers will continue to guide people to places where they can safely, discreetly camp, and that may be the best solution out of all the really difficult choices that we're facing with. I think I heard for Chris, I think we heard a loud consensus against protecting the cow pasture from camping. I think there was initial thoughts about the portable toilet, but I think we heard some valuable feedback that perhaps that doesn't make sense, especially since they're temporary anyway, so that it wouldn't really add a lot of value at this point up there. So the reason I called this meeting today before tomorrow's council meeting is so that I could sort of tell the council the recommendations or feedback we got. Is that inaccurate? Is that a fair summary?
That's fair.
Chris?
Fair.
Okay.
And I do want to thank you so much for calling this meeting, and it's very proactive.
Thank you.
I also appreciate everybody for coming and
Thank you.
sharing
Yes.
their concerns.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
That's okay. You're in I don't know how, I hope our mics are off. How you do it.